Good morning. Good morning. Morning, John. Great to see you this morning. We are in class number 20 in our series on godly wisdom. It's been a long journey. We started off with the fear of the Lord and being a red pill taker as opposed to being a blue pill taker, realizing that this stuff doesn't just come upon you because you carry a Bible around with you. It doesn't come just because you go to church. You can sit in a great church under a great ministry. You can have the best of the best and still be ignorant and still be gullible and still be a simpleton and so on and so forth. I mean, you have to work at this. You got to take the red pill. You got to make your mind up that this is what you want more than anything. You've got to see the dividend for pressing into wisdom, not just practical wisdom or academic wisdom or experiential wisdom, but biblical wisdom. As Job said, where can I get this? He went to all the things that were here. He went to all of the kingdoms, the vegetative kingdom, the animal kingdom, the aqua kingdom. He went to them all and said, hey, have any of you guys seen wisdom? And they said, no. We heard about it. He went to the dead and said, hey, do you know where to find wisdom? And they said, no, we heard the fame of it, but we don't know where to get it. And then Job says, well, God is the only one that has it. Wisdom is a person. Wisdom's not just a bunch of rules. It's a relationship with God, really, is what it is. And we should pursue it more than anything else in life. We said last week that, you know, the greatest investment you can make as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, as a husband, as a dad, as just a single guy with time in your hands and passion in your heart, the greatest investment and the greatest return of your life is to invest in wisdom, is to take the time, make the time to understand the concepts and principles. We talked about how that this wisdom is not for born-again believers per se. It's actually wisdom for humanity. It's wisdom for all human beings. It is actually the hardwiring principles as to how a spirit being can do physical life successfully. So you don't have to be born again to do it. You just need to be smart enough to obey it. It's our hardwiring. We call it common sense when you read it. You think, oh, that's common sense. And you see it that way because we're wired that way. And so it makes perfect logic when it's pointed out. It makes perfect logic when it's referred to or taught. But it's the application of it. It's not enough. Wisdom is not knowledge and understanding and knowing what to do. You still have to do it. It's not enough to say, I know what to do. We read over in the book of James where he said in chapter 1, be doers of the word and not hearers only. For somebody who's a hearer of the word and not a doer is somebody who has deceived themselves. And many a believer has spent time in church or decades in a community and have been deluded to think that, you know, they've got it. You don't got it if you're not doing it. If you do it, you get the return. If you do it, you see the dividend of your investment and your time. So this wisdom is amazing. Simple rules that govern our life, and in doing so, it affects every part of our natural life. Remember, we're spirit beings trying to do life successfully in a physical body. We're not physical beings trying to have a spiritual experience, which is a lot of what religion and tradition do. We are actually spirit beings, and these are the principles to enable, empower, allow us to do life in a physical body successfully. I wrote a few statements here. I'll see how far we get today. Your practical life is a reflection of your spiritual life. And that's just the reality of it. Many of these principles that we'll talk about topically, you'll realize, you know, you find somebody who's diligent, or you become a diligent individual, you'll see the results of it. You spot them a mile away. And when you spot them, you can tell a lot about them just by the fact that they're diligent. You say, oh, he was really diligent. I mean, to tell you what, I mean, they're on time. I'll tell you what, they stay until the last minute. They get it done. They stay until it's finished. They're really diligent. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot of other things that happen to those people because they do that, but you'd see that in their natural life. you'll see that trait of diligence. Well, it has a lot of dividends that pay out, other than just doing a good job. And we'll talk about that. Or you can see a lazy sod who just doesn't do nothing, won't do, never finishes anything. Always talking about what they're going to do and never doing it. Well, I'll tell you, just by understanding that logic or that attitude practically tells you where they're spiritually. Their physical life is a reflection of their spiritual life, truly. And one reflects the other. And so it's important. We talked about how that when you take these things up, in this book of wisdom, we learn a lot of things. And we learn discernment and discretion and prudence and shrewdness and insight and understanding. And we talked about, not as just something that you would want to get for yourself, but my goodness, this is what you want to give your kids. You know, a lot of time we talk about, I'm going to send my kid off to Harvard, or I'm going to send my kids off to Preston, or, I've got aspirations of, because they'll do well. Set them up for life. That's not true. The world will tell you, if you set them up there academically, that'll open all the doors. I'm telling you, that's not true. It does not prepare them for life. It may give them a certain line of expertise in the study of academia in some manner, make, shape, or form, up to that point, because there's always more to learn, always more to discover, and you're only learning from other people's studious life and their writings, so you sort of take that and pile it on to your understanding, and then you go experiment with it. But the real practical outworking of setting yourself up for life is this. I want my kids to have discernment and discretion and prudence and shrewdness and insight and understanding. I want them to deal fairly and make good judgments and treat people right and so on and so forth. These are principles. I want my son to know how to be a good husband. I want my daughter to know how to be a good wife. I want them both to know how to be good parents, and so on and so forth. You're not going to learn that at Harvard, and you're not going to learn that at Preston. You're going to learn that at home. And these are the principles that we as parents, as dads, get to implement and apply intentionally in our children. So they're not just for us this morning. These are for the young and for the old. And you say, well, I knew all of these. You'll never stop learning from them. Last week we took up the whole of Proverbs chapter 1. And really what I was trying to show you was that chapters 1 through 9 give all of the reasons why you should pursue this. Now, there's lots of wisdom within those chapters, and there's lots of truths being unfurled for us to grasp and set sail in life with. But I read them because I didn't want you to be foreign to it and think that it was all, code words and little code things. It's not. Real practical, real common sense stuff. And so we talked about, originally, the fear of the Lord and the pursuit of knowledge and understanding and all of these other things here that we talked about. And then we read this up, talking about the different types of people, those that rush to commit evil and commit murder, and they're always trying to allude to you to come and join them, that the benefits are going to be, if we all put our lot in together, it's all going to work. And they lay nets out to trap people, and they don't realize that these principles are actually trapping them. They think they're smart, but their own smartness is their own downfall, is really what he's saying. And these are principles we need to teach our kids right from the get-go. You don't need to run with everybody. You don't need to run with the crowd. And especially when they're endeavoring to, ensnare or trap or hurt someone else. It's just going to backfire. It doesn't work. These are the things you can be showing them in advance of them having to live it out or experience it. And then I highlighted some of the things that I wanted you to really see. And we saw there in verse 20, wisdom shouts in the street. She cries out in the public square. She calls to the crowd along the main street, to those gathered in front of the city gate. Again, it's for everybody. It's public. She's everywhere. She's letting everybody know. She's in the marketplace. She's shouting it from the housetops. She wants people to hear it. There's going to be certain analogies made here through this. One of them is going to be of wisdom being that lady wisdom, and you're going to get the harlot. Now, I know, the harlot here is also going to talk about, the deception of and the abuse of our lust, or that drive that is within us, in the wrong way. And so you'll read all about adultery and the adulteress, and don't go down by her way, and her paths are the path to destruction. And you can see it in a very practical, physical, sexual parameter, and say, well, that's what he's talking about. But he's also talking about wisdom and sin. Wisdom being she who is the wise one to pursue and to lay hold on and not let go of, and she's got long life in one hand and riches and honor in the other hand, and a relationship with her will bless you. He's basically saying there's still a drive within you to run after the other one. The harlot, the one that will promise you all sorts of things, give you pleasure quickly or answers speedily, that'll lure you down a certain path that might seem quicker or simpler or easier, and you'd be inclined to take it. He said, don't go with her. Don't commit adultery with her. So there's different ways of looking at the very proverbs that we're going to read or that you're going to see. So you think, well, it's all about sex. That was about the adultery and the adulteress. But in spiritual terms, it's all about us having that drive to serve God and using it for something else. Taking it and misusing the giftings or the graces or the passions that you have for something else. That all makes sense? All right. And then we talked about this, and we closed off on this last week, and that was three groups of people. How long, you simpletons, will you insist on being simple-minded? How long will you mockers relish your mocking? How long will you fools hate knowledge? Come and listen to my counsel. I'll share my heart with you and make you wise. I called you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out, but you paid no attention. You ignored my advice. You rejected the correction I offered. Wisdom is not silent. It's talking all the time. She's endeavoring to help everybody that will listen, everybody that will come. And she's not shunning them away. But these three groups of people don't come. So I will laugh when you're in trouble. I will mock you when disaster overtakes you. The implication here is you laughed at me, you mocked me when I was trying to tell you. Now when you're eating your own return, now when you're reaping what you've sowed, well, you know what? I get the last laugh. That's really what he's saying, or she's saying. So I will laugh at you when you're in trouble, and I will mock when disaster overtakes you. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone, he says, and anguish and distress overwhelm you. And I just pointed out these three guys, the simpleton, the fool, and the scoffer. The simpleton is the gullible, really. The fool just doesn't want to learn, doesn't want knowledge, runs from it all the time, will not receive correction in any way, shape, or form. That's foolish. And then, of course, the scoffer, they deliberately disdain anything that's not theirs, because they know it all. And the only advice they take is their own, so to speak. So then she says, when they cry for help, I will not answer. Though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me. And I just talked to you last week, I think we were talking for a wee bit, just about prayer. And this idea that, you feel that if you pray it, God has to answer it. He doesn't. Well, I prayed. God didn't answer. He doesn't have to answer you. He just doesn't. I mean, who said he does? And there's a lot of reasons why he doesn't, or why he wouldn't. And we read over in the book of, where did we read from? We read over in the book of James. We read over there about, asking for wisdom and not doubting it and obeying it, not being double-minded with it. We talked about them in chapter 4 arguing and fighting among themselves because when they asked God, they didn't receive from God. And the reason they didn't receive from God was because when they asked God, they were looking to use it on their own lusts and so on and so forth. It says in Psalm 66, I think in verse 18, if I hold iniquity in my heart, God will not hear me. So you think you can go ahead and just practice sin and just do what you want to do as often as you want to do it, where you want to do it, when you want to do it, but when you rub the lamp and say in the name of Jesus, God's got to jump to attention and answer your prayer. No, 66:18. I know people check you up all the time. Anyway, there's no harm in it. They're important issues to understand about God. He doesn't have to answer. And many times people reap what they sow. Go to Galatians real quickly. Galatians chapter 6. Somebody read verse 7 for me. 7 and 8.
Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life.
Paul's talking to believers there in Galatians. He says, here, listen, guys, cop yourselves on. Don't be deceived. Don't think that because you're a believer and you run like the world and with the world, but you think you get a pass to the effects of life or the issues of life because you're a believer, because you say Jesus is Lord, because you go to church, because you pack a Bible, because you say the Lord's Prayer. Therefore, I get a pass from the consequence of, living life like I used to live, or not changing my life to one of conforming to the image of Christ. I can live whatever way I want. Well, you can't. So he said, look, be not deceived. God's not mocked. You can't do one thing, make Jesus Lord of your life, and then go live the old life that you used to live and think that you're going to get all the benefits of the new life. It doesn't work that way. It never did. What made us think that? Who told us that you could just sort of paddle around up to your ankles in this stuff and you get all the benefits of it? It just doesn't work that way. He says, be not deceived. He who sows to the flesh, you can be a believer and sow to your flesh. You're going to reap corruption just like anybody in the world. If you want to live the spiritual life, you've got to sow to your spirit. It's just laws. These are just principles. And so he said here, on
this point, last week you made a very good point that I hadn't thought about before. And you said God may not answer your prayer because he's already provided the answer.
Right.
Meaning, the wisdom is there if you follow it, right? But if you don't follow it and ask for it,
sure.
He's like, I already told you, here it is.
Yeah, it's like, that's yours.
Yeah.
Now, ask me for my Bible.
Well, ask me for
No,
something I
I
haven't
ask
given you
you for my
already.
I want you to plead with me and beg me for my Bible. But I've already given it to you. So either you're ignorant of the fact that I give it to you, or you're just going through some religious rhetoric that makes it sound like you're spiritual or whatever, but the reality is true. The rules are there and the principles are there, and you can ask God all you want. God's not saying anything because God's already said something about that. And I told you, every time God opens his mouth, it's a law. It's a law, but yeah, I know where you're coming from. But everything God opens his mouth, it's a law. Because they're his words, and his word stands firm in the heavens. So God's not going to keep repeating himself per se. You asking God to tell you something when God's already put it there for you. So you just got to be a doer of this stuff. That's really what it is. So he says, when you cry for me, I won't answer, for they hated knowledge. They chose not to fear the Lord. They rejected my advice. They paid no attention when I corrected them. Therefore, they must eat the bitter fruit of living their own way, choking on their own schemes. So basically he just says, what you sow, what you reap. God's not mocked. Whatsoever man sows, that shall he reap. Christian or non-Christian, they're principles. And they work. And you and I get the new birth experience now gives us the power and the fellowship and the leading and the guiding and the teaching and the counsel and the revelation and the encouragement of the Holy Spirit to help us on that journey. But if you're going to sit back in your laurels and think, well, I'll just rub the lamp in the name of Jesus, or I get 4 people to put their hand on my head and I'm going to get it, it's not the way it works. It doesn't work that way. And many people think it does. Then he goes, this, sorry,
Which translation is it?
and the New Living Translation. I just use that because it just said it's simpler. And I'm rather King James, but anyway, I just did this. But all who listen to me, sorry, let me go. The simpleton turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. What a great place for you to live. Not worrying about what they're doing in Russia, what they're doing in Ukraine, what they're doing in Israel. Hello. Are we all going to die? Well, you are going to die. If the Lord tarries, you are going to die. But if you'll run to finish your course, not necessarily by this, but you're destined to die. That's one of the blessings God give man. How many of you know death's a blessing? All right. Okay?
Later.
Yeah, later. Thank God that he introduced that when he did. So we're all going to die, but God's promised you a finish if you'll run your course and live life with purpose. So stop worrying about all the other things that are going on in the world in the sense of their effect upon you as far as destiny and purpose is concerned. You just got to get up every morning, get on what you were told to do, and be what you were told to be. Do we pray for? Are we concerned for? Do we have empathy and sympathy? Of course. It's the world we're living in. Our children, our grandchildren are coming up in it. And we need to get involved where we need to get involved in whatever capacity of grace God give us, but particularly by living out the kingdom of God so the world can see that there is an alternative to the mess they're being subjugated to day in, day out. Now, let me make this clear. Proverbs are not promises to acquire, but are principles to which we aspire. Let me say this again. Proverbs are not promises. Stop quoting Proverbs to God. They're not promises. They're principles. You know, with me? I understand that God says it in His Word, or it's written for us to learn. But they're not promises. They're principles. So, Proverbs are not promises that God made us. They're principles that work if we apply them. So they're not things you bring to God in prayer and say, God, do this, do that. Because it's not a promise. It is a principle. And so Proverbs are not promises that we are looking to acquire, but are principles to which we aspire to have them work in our life. Does that make sense? All right. The obligation of a promise is upon the one who made it to fulfill. All with me? When somebody makes a promise, I'll mow your, if you leave the gate open at 9 o'clock, I'll come mow your yard. Well, all I got to do is leave the gate open. It's up to him to show up at 9 o'clock and mow the yard because he made the promise. It's up to him to fulfill it, not me. My only requirement of me is to leave the gate open. Period. So the obligation of a promise is upon the one who made the promise to fulfill it. But Proverbs are not promises. Proverbs are principles to live by and to aspire to. The onus of a principle is upon the activation of the one to implement it. So don't go to the book of Proverbs and start praying them. Go to the book of Proverbs, read them, learn them, and do them. Are you all with me? Are they the Word of God? Yes. Were they given to us by God? Yes. But they're not promises given to us by God. It's the instruction of hardwiring as to how you work. The onus is on you and I to implement them. Does that make sense? So stop looking. That's why you're not, see, thus saith the Lord, for the Lord saith. It's not in there. It's not in the book. It doesn't talk about it. And the reason being, because they're not promises, they're principles. So you won't find any of that stuff in there. All right? Okay. Now, I was going to, and here's what I was just going to try and show you so that you just don't feel odd with the book. As I said, the first 9 chapters are all about why you should press into this. I mean, we read back there a few minutes ago, God, if you'll press into it, you won't fall into the trap that a lot of people think they're setting for others, but are actually setting for themselves. You won't find yourself in a place where God won't hear your prayer. You won't find yourself in a place where you're worrying about life and death, but you'll have peace and have no worry over calamity and stuff. That's a great place to be. Great place to be, not worrying about stuff. You know, are they going to nuke me? You know, a lot of things you don't have control over, but you do have control over your world. And God will take care of you. So you say, how would he do that? That's down to him. That's his job. That he promised he'd look after me if I would walk in his ways. In all your ways acknowledge him. He'll direct your path. Just you go and apply it and watch what happens. So the principles, do them and watch what happens. So I just wanted again just to read a few so that you'll just be familiar. I just highlighted just some of the benefits. There's a load of benefits. My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. You got to teach your kids this stuff. You got to feel this way about yourself. Turn your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasure. I mean, how many of us were sat down and told that this was the most important thing we could learn as a teenager? How many of your teenagers are going to learn that this is the most important thing they can have? That this is really going to set them up for life? How many of us take the time not alone to learn it and do it and experience it ourselves, but then take the time to get our children sat around a table at the simplest of terms and explain some things in your own vernacular, from your own experiences of life, but teaching principles to them. Don't do that. That doesn't work. Don't join them. It will backfire. Whatever language you use, and then take them to the Word of God and show them why it says that. And again, we see this word, chakma, that keeps coming up all the time for wisdom, and the root of it is skill, or pounding it in, pounding it in, pounding it in until you become skillful in it, till you become an expert with it. But we don't spend the time with our kids. We fob them off to a Sunday school, or we fob them off to, you know, something of their own age, and hope that they'll get everything they need from there. I just wouldn't trust it. It's not their job anyway. It's your job to teach these things. Learn them for yourself, apply them for yourself, but teach them to your children. And this is what all this is about. It says, then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord and to gain knowledge of God. For the Lord grants wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He grants treasure of common sense to the honest. He is a shield to those who walk with integrity. You do the right thing for the right reason, and I'll tell you, you'll always prevail. Always. Even though sometimes it feels like you're not. Let it run its course. Let it go through its process. You will prevail. Teach these principles to your kids, because they're going to get hurt. They're going to be felt hard done by for doing the right thing, the right way. So, well, you know, it wasn't worth it. It is worth it. It will pay up eventually. Goes on to say, if I would just, it says, he guards the path of the just and protects those who are faithful to him. Again, the onus is on us to do it. He guards your path, protects. And then you will understand what is right, just, and fair, and you will find the right way to go. Again, these are things. You want to know the right thing to do. You want discretion. You want foresight and understanding. You want to be street smart. Let me show you what it is. Wise choices will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe. Wisdom will save you from evil people, from those whose words are twisted. He's teaching these concepts of life and why you would seek to find wisdom. He goes on here to talk about wisdom will save you from the immoral woman. And, you know, you say, well, do I teach that to a 14-year-old? Well, you can do. You know, hormones are starting to become active at that stage, and principles are being set. And if you don't teach them the morals and the values of sex and life and relationship and commitment and all of those different things, if you don't teach them, somebody else will. Somebody else will teach your children about sex. Sometimes you say, listen, sit down, I want to tell you about the birds and the bees, and the child will probably turn to you and say, I already know. Well, God help us. If you learn that, you pick that up in the schoolyard, and you pick that up from someone else. They're the principles you need to be teaching. And this is where all of this is about. And so as you read through chapter 2, it tells you all the benefits of the pursuit of and all the dangers of not having it. In chapter 3, he goes through the same. If you will seek after it and run after it, baby, I'll tell you, you will live many years and your life will be satisfying. What a wonderful thing to teach your children. This is what will satisfy your life. Or another one I have in yellow, then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will earn a good reputation. Principles, just learning the things of God, putting God front and center in your life. These are the best things you can do. And it's so hard when you send them off to college to try and undo it again, or to try and redo it, because they're old enough now to make decisions. And if you haven't given them the tools in the toolbox to make right decisions, then they struggle when they get out there. Sometimes they lose their way when they get out there, because of the peer pressure. But here's the deal. If you can get it into them when they're young, if you can start learning this stuff even at this stage in your life, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, as a husband, as a passionate believer, then the dividends are amazing, even for you. It says, he will show you which path to take. He goes on to say, then you will have healing for your body, strength for your bones. He will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with good wine. I mean, you want to be successful in life? You want to have more than enough? You want to have your needs met and your bills paid? You want to have the place in life where life's not worrying you. You can get on and do what you're meant to do. Remember Jesus taught them, guys, if you think that you got life to worry about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, and what you're going to put on, and so on and so forth, he said, my goodness, I mean, God gave you life for a bigger purpose than that. I mean, the birds, he looks after them, and they don't do any of that stuff. And the lilies of the field, he takes care of them, and they don't do that stuff. But no, he gave you life, and you're his greatest creature and his greatest creation, and he made you to be worrying about the bills and worrying about what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, and the style, and so on and so forth. No, he didn't. Our life is much bigger than that. But he said that's what the heathen run after. We should have more sense to seek first the kingdom and the right relationship we have with God. That's where all the benefits come from. We should teach this. He goes on to say in chapter... it's working again. There, joyful is the person who finds wisdom. Wisdom is more profitable than silver. Boy, you can't see an advert now on YouTube or Facebook that tells you need to invest in silver. Silver's going through the roof. You need to buy gold. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. There's wisdom in what's going on in the economies of the world right now, and there's different things happening all around. And whatever. But he says here, really, if you really want to invest, wisdom is far more profitable than any of it, because wisdom can get you all of this stuff. She offers long life in her right hand, riches and honor in her left. She'll guide you down delightful paths. All her ways are satisfying. Wisdom is the tree to those who embrace her. Happy is the man who lays hold on her tightly. Again, it's these Proverbs, chapters 1 to 9, are running through the outworkings of a life without wisdom and the reason we should pursue it, the benefits for doing it. And again, you should sit and read these, see the negative, what life offers, most of you and I and our children, and then tell them, here's how you prevail over all of that. And 4 degrees and a master's and a doctorate and this, that, and the other, it just doesn't wing it. It's just not enough. You're short a whole bunch of tools in the toolbox to do life. Doesn't make you a great dad or a great husband, or it doesn't make you live long or anything. But this other stuff will. Again, he will refresh your soul. They are like jewels on a necklace. He will keep you safe when you weigh. Your feet will not stumble. You will go to bed without fear. You will lie down and sleep soundly. You will not be afraid of sudden disaster or of destruction that comes upon the wicked, for the Lord is your security. He will keep your foot and bring you from being caught in a trap. And so on and so forth. And I can go into chapter 3 and keep going, and go into chapter 4 and keep going, and so on and so forth. Let me run to this one here. Here's wisdom again. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding put forth her voice? She stands at the top of the high places, by the way in the places of the path, or the crossroads. She cries in the gates before the entrance of the city, at the doors. O you, O men, to you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. It's just to everybody. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and fools, be of an understanding heart. Hear what I speak. Hear, for I will speak excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. Let me tell you, when you read this stuff, it's right. So, science, follow the science. Stop. The Word of God is right. It's right. He's not telling you twisted things. He's not telling you distorted things. He says here, for I will speak excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things, for my mouth shall speak truth. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. They line up with God. Nothing is twisted or perverse in them. They are all plain to them who understand, and right to those who find knowledge. Then he goes on to say, wisdom is better than rubies, and all things that you could ever desire are not to be compared to it. I, wisdom, dwell with sense, common sense, and find out knowledge of discretions or evil devices. In other words, I'll keep you informed of what's going on. You won't be, one of these gullible travels. Did you ever hear of gullible travels? There's a lot of people, particularly Christians, on gullible travels. They believe anything. They'll believe anything. You find 4 scriptures and give it to them, and that's it. They'll believe anything. And they're just gullible because they just don't have enough maturity. He says, don't do that. Wisdom is better than all them. Nothing's to be compared to her. It goes on in verse 13. For the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. I hate pride and arrogance and the evil way and the wicked mouth. Counsel and sound wisdom are mine. I am understanding. I have strength. And then he makes these statements, and I love them. It's the only reason I went here. He says, by me kings reign, and princes decree justice. Princes rule by me, and nobles, and all the judges of the earth. All morals and values and discretion and direction and what's right and what's wrong. If you want to lead and govern in life, these are the tools to do that. And we look at these people. You're a prince, you're a king, you're a judge. You are so, elevated in society simply because they're asked to do these things, and these are the tools, the toolbox that they need. I love those who love me, and those who will seek me early will find me. Riches and honor are with me. Enduring riches. These are not things that come and then they're gone. Enduring riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and what I give is better than choice silver. I lead in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of judgment, and I will cause those who love me to inherit riches, and I will fill their treasuries. If there was a seminar and somebody says, I'm going to teach you how to fill your house full of treasure, it'd be a great seminar to go to. I'm going to show you how to pay off your bills and na. Oh, I'm going to that one. How much is it? $10,000. Oh, I'll have to borrow it again, but it'll be worth it because I'll be able to pay all my bills at the end. No, it's all there. It's all in the book. And chapters 1 through 9 show you all the reasons you should do this, why you should pursue this, and all of the opposite of what life is offering to keep you away from it. Now, let me jump through all of that. Again, let me reiterate this. Your practical life is a reflection of your spiritual life. Well, the way you're living out your life is really down to you as a spirit, whether you're applying these principles or not. Believer or not, doesn't matter if you believe or not. As a spirit being, if you'll apply these principles, you'll find the benefit of it in your natural life. So if you're not seeing it in your natural life, it's just principles. Just you fix it. Fix the principle and start to activate it in your life and watch what happens. Again, Proverbs are not promises to acquire, but they are principles to which we aspire. The obligation of a promise is upon the one who made it to fulfill it. The onus of a principle is upon the activation of the one to implement it. So it's down to you and me. Okay, so let me get out of all of that now and jump into some topical things that you and I should know ourselves. So that's common sense. But these are probably nuggets that you can bring to your children, one at a time. But the principle's here. And again, you'll find it in all these different chapters, and pounding it again and again, saying the same thing different ways, but the principle is the same. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And as you keep reading it and learning it and pounding it and sharing it, it works its way in, and you drive that nail home, the nail of truth by the experiences of life. And these are things we should teach our children. So let me talk about these. And again, these are principles that I've endeavored to teach my kids through life. And I think we should learn them for ourselves and apply them to the lives of the people we love around us. The sluggard, laziness. It says here, go to the ant, sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. Who, having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provides her food in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. He said, what, common sense, go look at an ant. A little ant, you think, insignificant little thing. Annoying little thing. Look at them, there they are in the garden again. Look at them climbing up my leg again. You know, I hate them little pests. He said, stop a minute and have a look at this little creature. He's smarter than you're giving him credit for. You see, these guys are smart enough, even though they have no overseer or ruler, they have enough initiative. They have enough built-in hard wiring to know when to gather food and to take the opportunity when it arises and when it's there. Because they know it's not always going to be that way. How do they know? Don't know. They're wired that way. Go to the ant and study the little thing. He's smarter than you give it credit. Then he goes on to say, how long will you sleep, O sluggard? Now he told the sluggard to go to the ant. Told the lazy get to go and look at the ant. He says, how long will you sleep, O sluggard? When will you arise out of your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to lie down, so shall your poverty come as one that travels, and your need like an armed man. He said, you know what? These little creatures are hardwired with enough sense to know what to do in the right season. And they get on with it and they do it. But laziness, lying on, sleeping around, doing nothing. He said, let me tell you, the longer you sleep, the quicker your poverty and your demise is coming toward you. He says, your poverty comes as one that's traveling toward you. It's on its way. And your need like an armed robber. It'll steal everything from you. Laziness. Just being dog lazy. We need to teach our children. There's seasons for doing things. Seasons for going to school. seasons for studying. Well, I want to get a job. Well, I understand that you do and you want some money, but you know what? Everybody's for you in this season of life. You're 18, everybody's for you. Going to college, get your degree, set yourself up. The government's behind you, grants are behind you, your parents are behind you, society understands and will allow you to do that, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you know, I want to get a job, and you leave school at 16, 17, and you go out and you work and eventually get married and have 3 babies, and then you realize, God, I got to go back to school and do better. Now it's harder. Harder because you have 3 babies, harder because you have a mortgage, harder because, you know, life just doesn't gear you at 35 years of age to be going back trying to get another education. It just doesn't help. It's not geared that way. You're just missing seasons. The hand of the worker shall bear rule, but lazy people shall be under service. You can teach that to your kids. If you want to be a boss, you better be diligent. Lazy people never make bosses. They never do. You want to be successful in life, be diligent. Get up out of bed and do something. Find chores, get a job. Don't be lazy. You need me this morning? Proverbs 10. Like vinegar to the teeth and like smoke to the eyes, so is a sluggard to those who send him. You're an annoyance. Boy, there's nothing worse than having somebody that's as lazy as sin on your team. I mean, they're just annoying. You ask them to do something, you give them a responsibility, you give them an accountability, and I forgot. I was planning to do it. I was getting round to it. That's not the way it works. Teach our kids this. You become an irritant, you become an annoyance, especially when people are doing something and you're stuck in the middle of that. You're just upsetting the whole flow of everything. Lazy people don't even cook the game they catch, but the diligent make use of everything they find. You know, they have the best of intentions, but they're so lazy. They never see anything through. They never finish what they start. They always bail out. They never understand the benefit of what they've been given. And especially lazy people want everything given to them. Diligent people go get it. You hand it to a lazy person, you say, oh, thank you, but they won't take care of it. You give them something and you know what, it'll just go to ruin because they're not diligent. Give it to a diligent person, boy, they'll keep it and upkeep it and use it and thank you for it and appreciate it and advance because you did. Give it to a lazy person, guarantee you 6 months you'll have to go back and give it to the same person again. You know why? They're just annoying. They're the best of intentions, but they never get it done. They just never do. You can see it in people. I've met people like this all my life that just won't do it. I have an excuse for not doing it. Let me do this one. You want to talk, Barry? Okay, let me just finish this one here. I walked by the field of a lazy person, Solomon said, the vineyard of one with no common sense. I saw that it was overgrown with nettles, it was covered with weeds, and its walls were broken down. Then as I looked and I thought about it, I learned this lesson. A little sleep and a little slumber, a little folding and procrastination of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. He said, I walked past a vineyard. It was a vineyard. It had the potential to produce, but it wasn't producing. It had all of the skill sets of purpose given to it, but it never done anything with it. They just didn't take care of it. They didn't use it. The wall got broke down, and all sorts of junk came in and choked the whole thing out. He said, I learned a lesson. I learned that that's what happens to lazy people. They sit around, and before you know it, the weeds are over the wall, and before you know it, they've lost the job. Before you know it, they've lost the investment. Before you know it, they've lost the marriage. Before you know it, they've lost the kids. You know, before you know it, they haven't done anything. They weren't diligent about anything that they were given. And what you're seeing in their life is the product of their own folly and laziness. You can fix it, but you've got to change what you do. You've got to activate other principles in order to do it. So, lots more to talk about in laziness. And we'll take it up again next Tuesday, and we'll add in another topic, and we'll start working off of these topics for the next 7 or 8 weeks. Barry, you're going to come and share.
Hey guys, good morning. I'm Barry Spencer. If we haven't met, I'm a member of the board of Bible Optics, and give me a sense on who's in the room. How many have been coming since the beginning when it was a small Bible study with Marty in the back corner of somewhere, right? How many? Show me hands. How many? Okay, so these are the guys that were part of the origination of this, that invited Hassan in to lead the Bible study, and then quickly realized he had something to really offer, right, Marty?
Better than I could.
Only slightly.
And we're all recipients of that gift who've been coming maybe for the last 2 or 3 years. How many guys? All right, cool. And maybe in the last year you started coming. How many? Okay, cool. Welcome everybody. So as a part of this, from that Bible study to now, we became Bible Optics, a nonprofit ministry that supports Hassan in his teaching and being able to present every single week like this. And we don't ever talk about helping with money for Bible Optics, but it's a nonprofit supporting this teaching ministry. And so the other thing that's going on, we just came back from Ireland, was that last month there? I think it was.
Yeah.
And we shot a video series, a 5-part series on What's in a Name. How many were here for that series, What's in a Name? That was 3 years ago, yeah, Joe? Yeah, so the same group that has shot videos and studies and small group studies for Louis Giglio, Andy Stanley, and the like, called Right Now Media, produced this study. And we got a chance to have a very professional group do this. It's really amazing to do this. So that will be released to 28,000 churches around the world here at the beginning of probably next year, I think, at the beginning of the year. They're in the process of that. And that's the first of several that we've teed up to do with them. Because while we do this, there's a vast amount of people that need to hear this teaching. How many would agree with that? Yeah? How many have found this quite life-changing as I have? Yeah. So what we need is to get some help with support, because what's going on is every month there's many of you in this room that are faithfully giving every single month. And we run at about a $2,000 a month deficit every single month. And so what that means is if there's could be some guys in this room or guys you know that aren't here today you could talk to, I mean, just 10 guys giving an extra $100 a month, right? 5 guys getting $200 more a month, that would get us on the, that would get us to where we need to be every single month. The way we make up that deficit now is there's some guys and generally a number of people on the board, including myself, that will write a big check to make up a deficit, or to help. We have a small portion to pay for the series with Right Now Media, and so we'll write a check to offset whatever costs we had to do, which was about $6,000 for that, and it was a $45,000 project. So Right Now Media did that, and so we covered the cost, which I thought was a pretty good cost-benefit reward. What do you guys think? That was pretty good. So we want to continue to do those things. So that's what we're looking for. Help anyone in the room that you feel like, gosh, maybe another $100 a month. It would go a long way. And I know sometimes you think $100 a month, like, does that make any difference? When you're a deficit of $2,000 a month, and 10 guys do an extra 100, guys, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to make sure this guy is constantly leading this group and teaching and producing more. And along with the series, What's in a Name, we are also finishing the book. I know some of you have been here a long time, said there's a book coming, right? Yeah. Here's what happened with the book. It was put out to a writer. The writer helped with producing the book. The writer was paid. And I sat down with Hassan first of this year, January. Hassan, I sat down, and what happened was the writer actually rewrote the book and reinterpreted what Hassan was saying and made it religious. And I didn't quite get it, so I sat down and read it with Hassan. And then as I was reading it, I said, this isn't your voice at all. I said, did you say this? He said, no. Did you say this? He said, no. I said, well, this isn't you. So we've kind of gone back and we've gone through 4 different editors that would not rewrite what Hassan's saying, but just make what Hassan's saying readable. Does that make sense? So that's what we've been working on, and unfortunately it's taken us the last 7 or 8 months to try and figure out who that right person could be for this book and more. So I say all that to say that while we sit in this room every Tuesday, and for those that come on Saturday morning, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that Hassan is also working on in preparing and teaching and getting ready, from the video series to the book and to additional things. And we want him to be able to do that 100% of the time. And so for your help to help make that possible, we greatly appreciate that, to be a part of it. So an email went out a week ago. Did everyone get the email that talked about this? Did anyone? If you didn't, will you please give me your email address so you can be on the communications? We also send a weekly text to make sure that everyone's getting the latest of what's happening this week. So if you don't get the text messages or the email, will you please get with me and give me that today so you have that as well? Is that good? Guys, any questions at all about where we're at as a ministry, where we're going, anything I can be of help to you, and answering questions about that? Yeah.
Is there an easy way to change the amount that you're giving, or do you have to enter in a new something? Is it just click through something?
Yeah, it should be just on BibleOptics.org. And the easiest way to do it would just be add to whatever you're doing. So if you're giving, just go ahead and make another, and then if that doesn't work, let me know, and I can get with Mike. Mike handles the finance side. Mike Kendrick, if you know him, he handles like the behind the scenes stuff. And if that doesn't work, get with me and I'll work on that. So anyone else, yeah.
If you had to hazard a guess, what percentage of people that attend class give?
Honestly, I haven't gone through the donor roll to say, here's who's given, who's not. What I see that, I know there's several names that pop up that are obviously giving every month and giving generously. I would say the majority, probably on Tuesdays, give. And so it's just a matter of who can give a little bit more, is what I would say, Phil. Yeah.
I didn't know that was an option here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some don't, right? So BibleOptics.org, there's a way to set up an auto thing. If you want to do it with your credit card, you can do it that way. If you want to write a check, you can just write a check and you can send it. The address on BibleOptics.org is the address you can send it to. Just make it a Bible Stores tax deductible donation. If you have, as you get to the end of the year, if you have stocks that have had capital gains and you want to give the stock, you avoid the capital gain when you give the stock. And you can also give stock to Bible Optics too. For those who don't realize, instead of taking the stock, paying the capital gains, and then writing a check, you can just give the portion of the stock. You avoid the capital gains 100%, so that saves you 25%, and you get the full balance of that, so you avoid the tax on that too. So that's another way you can give also. And if you want to know more about that, just let me know. I'm happy to help you understand that. Anyone else? Any other questions, thoughts? Anything else? And many thanks to Ron. He heads this up, making sure when you're not here, as I'm sometimes on the road, making sure that we hear everything and get a good recording. So many thanks to Ron for all your volunteer work and all of this. So cool. Anyone else, guys? Good? Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Hassan, for giving me a minute. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And all remember to, and I always see stuff like this as an investment in your own life. You're investing in yourself. And you're investing in your marriage, you're investing in your mental capacity, you're investing in your sleep, you're investing in your health, you're investing in your kids. And what wouldn't you give to see your kids get the best start in life? And that's your job. You're equipping yourself for that. You're investing in yourself to be a better you. And so anything you do and give, yeah, that's what we're using it for. But you know what? We all have different gifts and gracings, and we contribute. I share mine and you share yours, and we all get blessed because we do our best at what we do. So again, thank you for sharing that. Anyway, we will take up laziness next week. We'll go back over this again. We sort of ran through a new Bible and so on. But we take up these concepts. We talk about laziness and diligence. We talk about a husband. We talk about a wife. We talk about sex. We talk about money little concepts that are basically here, they're all here. How to do life successfully as a spirit being in a physical world. Somebody want to close us out in prayer, and we'll take it up again next week.
Father, you are the source of everything, whether it's our money, our talents, and even in this series, wisdom. You said that all that needs to be said, and thank you for the reminder. Would you give us the humility and the perspective to take what we've heard and apply it to our lives? It can be difficult when you've got a lot of noise around us, confusing us, and yet you've made it so simple and so clear. Help us to not just rely on these things as promises you've made, but principles that we need to apply in an active and conscious way. Thank you for the opportunity to hear this each week, and encourage us to renew our minds each morning in between class, that we continue to be leaders in our community and our families. Thank you for Hassan's teaching and the many blessings you provide, Lord, in your name.